Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todders and Aaron McIntyre. I am Steve Deace. Thank you for joining us on today's show. We're going to do our best today on the program to try to get answers to a lot of the questions that are being asked today on a couple of different fronts. All right. At the bottom of the hour, one of the most important, maybe it could possibly be top 5, 10 most important activists on our side that for really no reasons I can justify. I wish I could tell you I had some falling out with this individual, some kind of grudge. That's why they've never been on. I have no excuse for why Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch has not been on this show before. Because, I mean, I read his stuff constantly. I've shared it many times over the years. It's just one of those things. And then yesterday, I think I sent you a note and I said, you know what? We're like 10 years overdue booking this on the program. All right? Because Tom is asking a lot of the questions that I know a lot of you are asking about how much should we be expecting from the fact that our guys, including someone that I know personally and respect greatly, are running the FBI right now. What's a reasonable expectation? Because few organizations on our side do more hand-to-hand combat with the swamp on a daily basis, with the deep state on a daily basis, than Tom Fitton does over at Judicial Watch, right? So when I saw him make some pointed observations about 24 hours ago, I went to Utah and he was books the show, and I said, all right, I kind of feel like if Tom is now saying the meter's running, maybe the meter's running here, right? You know what I'm saying? So Tom is going to join us on the show here at the bottom of the hour. And I'm a guy who's just closer to this than we are, much closer, knows way more about it than we do. And what is a reasonable expectation of where we ought to be right now with our guys in charge, and ultimately where this is supposed to go with our guys in charge? Like last night, Kash Patel comes out last night with a story.
It's in the montage.
I was just going to say, I'm sure it's Aaron, it's in your montage, that he's discovered, the FBI discovered classified intel that China was attempting to involve itself in a false mail-in ballot scheme to impact the 2020 election, right? And he sent that over to Senator Grassley, who's the chairman of the Senate committee that overlooks such matters. All right, so we're going to get into this and try to get some of your questions answered from Tom Fitton at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an entire hour of fake news or not. And I've had Todd select what some of the most important, biggest name people on our side are saying right now about the argument happening within our own ranks over what's the foreign policy rubric for America First moving forward. Everyone agrees that the post 9/11 neocon flirtation with right of center utopianism. I mean, I really thought when we said we were going to war in Iraq in order to spread democracy in the Middle East, I thought that was just all BS. Like I was in favor of a war for oil. I mean, it just makes sense to me. The only reason we care about what's going on in this region of the world is what?
No, oil or Israel.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for oil, that would diffuse a lot of the tensions, correct? So I actually wanted it to be a war for oil. I was all in favor of a war for empire. They invaded us. They came to our doorstep. So, okay, we'll go to yours. How you like them apples? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over there, get rid of Saddam. We're going to take Cheney's Halliburton refineries, build a whole bunch of them over there, use Iraqi labor to do it. So we're going to give them all jobs, good paying, middle class jobs. Just buy off the Iraqi people, right? Start terraforming a culture there. Hire the Iraqi people to do those jobs. Start building Halliburton refineries. We're going to pump that black gold out of the ground at a record pace. We're going to sell it at like $35 wholesale per barrel out of the ground to completely undercut OPEC. But here's the thing, though. We're only going to sell it to our coalition partners. If you didn't help us go in there, you don't get to buy. And we'll just create our own little loyalist cabal. You guys, if you didn't go in, you can buy it for $100 a barrel from OPEC. By the way, we're 30 seconds into this. Isn't what I presented to you way better than actually how everything turned out 20 years ago? Yes.
Well, it's not hard to get better.
That's true. It is a low bar. That's true. All right. And so we're going to give all the money from the oil sales, again, because we're going to buy the Iraqi people's loyalty. This is what you see Hamas and Hezbollah do. They buy off they buy off the loyalties. The Israelis bomb your home, we'll buy you a new home. We'll give you damages, okay? So we give the money to the Iraqis, pump that into their economy. They can have a market-based economy now. We don't need their money. I think we've learned, we can just keep printing our own, okay? We don't need their money. That was a joke. Stop the emails. I was joking to a point. We don't need their money. We're going to give them back. They get to keep all the money. $35 a barrel. The amount of oil we're going to pump out of the ground in Iraq to the Iraqi people, since Saddam was giving them like none of it, that's going to seem like they're all billionaires overnight, right? So we're going to give them all the money. We just want the cheap oil, because the benefit that will be to our economy is monumental, cataclysmic, all right? And have a nice life. And now we have an entire nation called of Guantanamo Bay right there in the heart of the Middle East, with a country that borders all the other countries that would dare ever try to step with us. Because if you do this again, we don't have to do some 6-month lead up or anything. A B-52 stealth bomber will just show up in the dead of night and, oh no, Mecca's gone. What will we ever do? Don't ever do that again. Message sent. That's what I thought that's what we were doing. That's why I was for it. Turns out we actually believed this utopian crap. We did believe it.
Ironically, if democracy actually stood a chance in the Middle East, it would be through the realpolitik that you're describing.
Yes. Yeah.
Not through the
utopian... literally make Iraq the 51st state. Yeah. I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating anything point. I just said. And if you listen to me on the radio 20 years ago when I first started, when this was all going on, Todd can sit there and tell you, I was saying this locally on the air at the time. This is what I thought we were going to do.
This is like a time capsule show.
I never believed we actually thought we were going to bring democracy to the Middle East. And we did. So I think we've all seen that these utopian schemes, right or left, just if they don't align with human nature, they just...
And they certainly don't align with Islam.
Correct. We recognize then that these things don't work. But we're left now stuck arguing amongst each other where to go next. And we've kind of coined the phrase on our show the last week or two, Team Levin versus Team Tucker. Now, again, within these teams, there are variances, and human beings are not algorithms. We say a lot on the show. But for the most part, there's a lot of genuine agreement if you wind up in these two camps. Okay? At least meta agreement. There may be disagreements on the specifics. So what we're going to do next hour, we think that there should be at least some come now and reason together. And again, I'm not trying to be above it all. I'm just trying not to be a know-it-all. Because I have sympathies to various aspects of these dueling narratives. But one of them is going to get mortally wounded here by the events of what's happening right now.
Don't know which one for sure.
We don't know which one for sure, but one of them will be. And that's why you're seeing, and people realize this, that's why tensions are high right now. You are seeing people go at each other by name that you have never seen before. I mean, you are seeing this happen because tensions are high. Somebody's narrative is getting kicked to the curb based on how all of what has been kicked off by what Israel did. In striking Iran. And then, because here's the thing, if we had been inundated with a bunch of civilian casualties the very next day, one narrative would be in trouble right now. But we weren't. So another narrative is in trouble right now. But that could change. We'll get into that after Aaron's montage. But next hour, I had Todd handpick some of the things mentioned on social media by some of the biggest names in our movement and industry. And some of them are going to be Team Tucker, and some of them are going to be Team Levin. And we're going to do our very best to analyze what they had to say and then look at it from the perspective of both of these dueling narratives. And then ultimately, we're not here to pronounce the verdict. I don't have the latest intel. I don't work in the State Department. This isn't COVID, where I could go and find the best data that was available out there to reinforce my assumptions or to challenge them if need be. Okay? This isn't that. And so I just want to present as best we can, I think, because someone's going down hard. One side of this argument's going down hard, and they're probably not going to go down easy, whichever side that it is. And that's going to include some people, regardless of which of these camps you're in, there's going to be some people in the other camp that's going to lose here that have done some work probably on our side in the past that you liked, respected, and admired. There's going to be hurt feelings here, permanent relationship damage here. You're watching a coalition reassemble itself and realign right now. And so I think before that goes down, there needs to at least be one place where we take a deep breath and just have a hearing. We're just going to have a town hall hearing and let you guys hear as best as we can articulate with our own biases, okay, where each side is coming from in response to what each side is saying, and then also about each other. And then there's not going to be any great verdicts or anything at the end, because the verdict is going to play out literally on the battlefield. That's the verdict. The proof of concept is going to happen in real time because we're not arguing this stuff in theory anymore. This is going down. This is happening. So we're going to do that coming up in the next hour of the show, right? But before we do that, let's get to Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
And my program just crashed.
All right. While you get it back.
It quit unexpectedly. Thank you very much.
While you do that, you know what? This is what I'll do then, because it gives me a chance to do a shameless plug. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready.
Okay.
All right. All right. So, folks, we are finally, for Richie Meets the Rainbow, we were supposed to launch 2 weeks ago. Amazon approved it weeks before that, then told us the day of the launch, your book's under review. All right, then they went ahead and put it up a week later without telling us in advance and just put it up. We had no idea. We just found it accidentally. Then they put us in the wrong category. All right, it's taken 2 weeks, okay, of getting our change jerked by the spirit of the age. We're finally fully up, and we are finally in the category we've been going for the entire time. Our goal with this book was to trend in the LGBTQ plus FU category. Amazon is finally listing us in that category. You guys can help us do that. For your love gift this month, it'll cost you just $15 to make Richie Meets the Rainbow. Do your part to make Richie Meets the Rainbow trend in the LGBTQ FU category for Pride Month here on the number one bookseller in human history, Amazon.com. Not to mention, you get a great book. It's very funny. It's reverent in the right ways, irreverent in the right ways. Oh, and Dad gets to be the hero for a change. Get your copy at richiemeetstherainbow.com. Click the Order Now button. It'll take you right to the Amazon page, or you can just go to Amazon, search for Richie Meets the Rainbow by Steve Deace in the search bar. RICHIE, Richie Meets the Rainbow. Get it at Amazon now. Richie Meets the Rainbow, RICHIE. Help us to trend in the LGBTQ FU category at Amazon.com. And now, I think Aaron is ready.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Something is Changing. President Technological differences. I don't know if we're going to be able to play the montage today. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
All right, let's do this, because I'm sure it would have been a killer montage. I'll give you the call, Aaron. You want to try one more time? You want to strike out?
We're going to strike out.
All right, Aaron made the call. We're going to strike out. I felt like I needed you to make the call because you're the one that works so hard on it every day. You know, so I want to be deferential to your handiwork. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here was essentially going to be the major point that I was going to make based on Aaron's montage. Because looking at the rundown, there's a clip by a guy that was going to be in Aaron's montage by a comic named Dave Smith. All right, now, I don't know Dave Smith. I know of him a little bit. He showed up in my feed a couple of times during COVID. I thought he had the right kind of skepticism. I don't know. Have we ever had some kind of discussion about one of his takes or anything?
I don't think so.
All right, and I'm not saying that to be derogatory, but just to point out, it's not somebody that we know very well or has not been a lot on our radar. Just not because we are angry at him or rejecting him in any way. It's just that there's only so many voices you can follow in a given time, right? I mean, there's other people that say and do a lot of the same kinds of things that we do. Maybe they do it in their own way, but they're touching on a lot of similar themes from the same worldview. And once they get that person's kind of on their is on another host radar, it would just make sense they'd follow a lot of their stuff, right? And so a lot of the stuff that Dave Smith says is stuff that I pick up in other places that we follow and cover and people we know. So we've just never connected with him in the past, all right? But there's a clip of him going viral right now. Calling for Trump's impeachment because he has not stopped the Israelis from what they're doing in Iran. And I'm not here to critique Dave Smith's individual take on this or the context of his views. I do not fully know them. But the reason why I wanted to discuss that coming out of Aaron's montage, should it have fired today, is because I want to make sure you guys understand why we do the things that we do on our show and the way that we do them. Because they are contrary at times to what you see happening in many other places in our industry. Now there's a couple of reasons for this that are fundamental. And then the other reason is a choice. The couple of reasons for this that are fundamental is the fact that we are intentional about having a biblical worldview lead our viewpoints on the show. We're not even close to the only show that employs a biblical worldview in its analysis. I mean, I would say a lot of the people that we have on our show probably attempt to do that. Okay, but what is unique for us is it is a prime directive. I mean, I literally I interpret all of my opinions as best as I can that I give you, and all of the analysis as best as I can that I give you from a biblical lens first. That ultimately tells me whether this is true, no matter what quote unquote data or anything else is saying, because I don't believe anything outside of the Word of God can be true. In terms of, does that thing contradict the Word of God? Are there things that are true that the Word of God doesn't specifically address? Well, of course, right? I'm not going to learn how to bake the best Chicago-style pizza from reading the Bible, right? So there's some common sense there, okay? But is there anything of this world that the Bible speaks to that this world challenges that is true? And the answer to me is no. All right, so we place an extra emphasis on this on this show, and I do think there's a few other shows that do that, but not many others. So that's number one. And then number two, I think the fact that we just live in Iowa, and so we know a lot of people, but we on one hand, but it's kind of weird, we're also kind of isolated from a lot of people too. And even though I have a lot of friends and contacts around the country, and believe me, my phone was going nuts all last night. I mean, even trying to do my monthly poker night last night, my phone was going nuts the entire time. Okay. But we're not necessarily involved with a consortium of people who got together for a specific candidate or cause or party, and we all kind of are part of the same ecosystem, and we feedback loop to each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You'll notice that here at the Blaze, for example, there is a wide variance of opinion on what's happening in the Middle East right now, even amongst our own team. Right? You know, and you can thank Glenn for that. Right? So, you know, Glenn doesn't manage us anymore, but he has earned chairman emeritus status. And I mean, he's big into critical thought, critical thinking, big into discernment, big into having assumptions being challenged. And so, you know, he's not president here anymore, but he is still the sun of our solar system. And so he does still kind of set the orbit and you know, how the planets revolve around each other here. And he kind of sets the tone that we don't all have to walk in lockstep here whatsoever. So you'll follow our network and listen and hear widely divergent opinions on the exact same issues, but from the same side of the aisle. That's unique. You don't get that in a lot of places. All right. So you can thank Glenn for kind of setting the tone where that is concerned. And so it's not just that we're not even around, even a lot of the people that we know and like, we're not even around them a lot. We're just out here in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. But we're also with a company that encourages individualism on that level. So that's another reason that those two things are kind of fundamental to how we do things. The third, though, is a choice that I have made. And you guys know, after I got converted, I spent the next few years studying everything I could about Christianity. Reading everything I could get my hands on, watching every Christian TV show. I'm still in some spiritual counseling for that, so pray for me. Listening to every Christian podcast I could, you know, trying to essentially do years and years of study and catch myself up. I was literally obsessive about it. And one of the things I really struggled with was, I really like what Augustine says about this over here. But I really like what Calvin says about this over here, and it's completely contrary to Augustine. But I really like what Luther says about this over here, but he's kind of counter to both these guys on this other thing. And then when he starts talking about Jews, I mean, I can't tell if this is Mein Kampf or, you know, a 96 Theses, okay? And I kind of like what this guy said about that over here. And then you find out, was it Origen? Which one of the church fathers went off the rails later in life? Was it Origen that did?
He castrated himself.
Yes, he went off the rails, right? So like, there's like, Origen for a period of time, you're like, you could probably just do an entire hermeneutic catechesis on just what Origen said for like a period of 5 years. And then if you go like 5 or 10 years later, you don't want to listen to anything Origen says, okay? And in our own time, like if you picked up a Tim Keller book from like pre-2005, it'd be really good. You picked up a Tim Keller book from like post-2006, I would tell you not to pick it up, okay? And I could not figure out how to navigate all of this. And then I remembered one of my favorite movies from my childhood, the War Games. The only way to win the game is not to play. And I just realized, you know what? I don't have to do that. That's not my job. I don't have to. And ultimately, it comes down to this for me. If I think that's true and that person is right, at that moment, I'm with them. And if I think that's true, that's false, and that person is wrong, no matter how many previous times I thought that person was right, and no matter how many previous times I was with them, right now I'm not. I don't agree with you on that. I'm happy to tell you why, walk you through why, but that's going to be no for me, dog. And that's the only way I could think of to stop myself from going insane or becoming a tribalist or idolatrous. And I think we are living in an era where a lot of that kind of discernment and critical thinking is lacking, wasn't taught, wasn't encouraged. And yet we are earnestly seeking for truth right now more than maybe at any other time I've been alive. People have such a great desire to know what is true and an understanding they've been lied to on a collective level. But here's the thing, if we don't do this with discernment that I had, like what I had to learn, and if you don't have that ultimate plumb line of the Word of God, notice I started my whole conversation with that. If you don't have the whole plumb line with that, then you're going to seek out, you have to get affirmation from somewhere. So if it's not going to come from the Word of God, it's going to come from people. And it's going to come from the group of people that you want that approval from. So for me, I don't have an issue with, I'll just use Naomi Wolf as an example, someone I immensely respect. Okay? I don't have an issue whatsoever going to a woman who for 30 years was in a political camp completely opposite of mine. But at the pivotal moment in all of American history, at least in the American history that I've lived in my lifetime, she was right as rain as far as I was concerned. That mattered to me more than how many times when she worked for the Clinton administration or wrote feminist tropes, I thought she was wrong. Because we weren't having that fight right now. We were having this one, and she was right. We're kind of past that fight to a point. She's on to some other issues again that are issues her and I don't agree on. But here's the thing. I don't see a need to go in and nuke her now either, though, at the same time, because I greatly respect the fact she stood in the gap on something we both agreed in at a time that the country needed people willing to do that. You see what I'm saying? This requires, though, a lot of discernment. And a lot of our understanding of the truth seeking we're doing as a culture is rooted in I need to belong, though, too. I have a faction. I need people's respect. And you can go from one extreme to another if you have to have a narrative reinforced as opposed to what is true. In 2015, in 2013, 2014, and half of 2015, Donald Trump did about everything he could to hire me to be on his presidential campaign. I came this close to taking it. In the second half of 2015 and all of 2016, I did everything I could so that Donald Trump would never be president of the United States. I found out the other day that one of the reasons somebody I didn't know why they didn't like me, really doesn't like me, is because they knew I was one of the people doing the Free the Delegates thing at the convention. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I was doing that. So in this case, they have a justifiable reason to not like me. Now I know what it is. I appreciate you telling me. It makes sense to me now. I didn't know. I did do that. I was involved. But if you listen to our show the morning after Trump was elected, the first thing I said when I came on the air that day, and it's very possible, and you've pointed this out before, it is very possible it's the most important thing I've ever said on the air in the history of my career. And I said, hey, the country has spoken. Never Trump is dead to me. It's never coming back. We need to do what is absolutely best for the country right now, and we need this to be successful. Because I think we can at least all agree we're glad Hillary Clinton's not taking the oath of office in 75 days. The very first weekend of the Trump administration, I had somebody reach out and ask me for help with air cover fighting an immigration battle. And it was an immigration battle that I agreed with, yes. So to prove that this was dead to me and they were willing to do the things I agreed with when I was asked to help, guess what I did? I helped. And I think when you are determined that you have a narrative, your narrative is not truth. But here's the thing, without the word of God, you will think that it is. You will think that it is. And that's what Dave Smith and other people are running into right now. They're unwilling to reevaluate their narrative. That does not mean that that does not mean because your initial narrative on Israel, what Israel did to Iran, was flawed, does not mean that we now jump immediately to instant regime change. And we're going to have that conversation next hour. We're terraforming what the new rubric for foreign policy on the right is right now. And it's going to look more like this, guys. It's not going to be like that. Because you know why? The world isn't like this, a straight line. It's wavy, okay? We can't follow the yellow brick road. We fall. No one had Israel successfully demolishing Iran's air cover system. This wasn't even on our radar at this time last week. Last week, it wasn't on our radar.
We were talking Elon versus Trump.
Yes, we were. Now, the whole world has changed because of an event that wasn't even on our radar a week ago. This is why. If you do not make the word of God your plumb line, you will make you your plumb line. You'll make your narrative your plumb line. And then you'll defend your narrative to a point that you think your own credibility is at stake, and you'll box yourself in to, frankly, foolishness. And that's what David Smith is doing. And that's what we all do. I didn't, it wasn't in my heart. Just Steve Deace alone. The day after Trump won that election to come in on the air and say, never Trump is dead to me and never coming back. It was the conviction of the word of God, the possibility that maybe I misread the moment. Maybe more is going on here than I thought. And maybe I'm the one that's wrong. Doesn't mean that I think I am, but maybe I am. So for now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a step back from the ledge. Last year we talked about Gamaliel mode. Hey, if this is of God, we can't stop it anyway, right? See, most people want a narrative. Sometimes you guys will ask me, hey, this person used to be on your show all the time. Where are they? Why aren't they coming on? Well, it's not that we disagree with that person. It's just that it's very clear that person has a narrative that they will not let go of. It's become an idol. They won't reassess it. Their narrative must be reinforced. Well, at that point, I don't consider them an honest broker. And that doesn't mean they're being intentionally deceptive. What it means is they have made a conscientious decision that everything true must affirm their narrative, even if it doesn't. So they're self-deceptive. They're deceiving themselves. They're not a deceiver themselves. They're deceiving themselves. Does that make sense? It's self-delusional. And unfortunately, we have these devices right here that give us instant feedback all the time from the group that we want feedback and affirmation from, to keep that feedback loop alive. We're not going to do that here. At least not as long as I'm hosting it. And that means you're going to see people come in who are our friends for a while, then they'll disappear, then they'll come back again, then they'll disappear. And it's not that we moved anywhere. It's just that right now we agree, and right now we don't. And later we might agree again, and later we won't. Because I'm not after a narrative. I'm chasing after the Word of God, the only perfect thing on the earth. But if you don't have that at work in your life, you will succumb to a narrative. It'll likely be of your own making. It'll likely cause you to do really foolish things and box yourself in to keep affirming said narrative, to unnecessarily alienate people to affirm said narrative. We're all one decision from Schmiegel to Golem. right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. We are brought to you by our friends over at Freedom Project Academy. You know, just because we defeated the woke crowd in the last election doesn't mean they have gone away. They still do run most of the government schools in the country. They are still trying to indoctrinate the next generation. They also are causing a lot of our government schools to fail our children. That's where Freedom Project Academy comes in. If you're still looking for options for this fall, for your child, maybe even want to do some stuff here during the summertime as well to supplement what they're going to be doing in the fall. Freedom Project Academy is here for you. They have perfected the art of online learning over the last 15 years. They offer live, anytime, homeschool courses for students in kindergarten through high school, all built on Judeo-Christian values. They're dedicated to the mastery of subject matter over there at Freedom Project Academy. So your kid's going to be taught how to think, and how to think for themselves, not what to think. Study the full scope of history, do things that encourage critical thinking, like write in cursive. They're going to graduate with wisdom and knowledge above their government school peers. So to help celebrate 15 years, FPA is offering their largest discount ever. Go to freedomforschool.com right now, freedomforschool.com right now, and use the code STEVE15 to get 15% off at Freedom Project Academy. And I can tell you, my son Noah went to Freedom Project Academy for a couple of years. I saw firsthand how good these guys are, what they do. Would highly recommend. Anytime, homeschool courses, you cannot afford to let them dumb down another generation. So go to freedomforschool.com, freedom for F-O-R, freedomforschool.com, use the code STEVE15 for 15% off and take back your child's education. Well, as I said at the top of the show, I am ashamed. Because frankly, this is a conversation that should have taken place many, many, many years ago. And there's no reason why I didn't. I just let it slip through the cracks, even though I've been following this individual's work for many, many years. So it's good to have on the show for the very first time. Long overdue, and my apologies. Tom Fitton over Judicial Watch. Tom, how are you, man? Good to see you.
We haven't been on the show together before.
I don't think we've ever had you on the show before, man. And that's on me. Totally on me, brother.
I feel like I know you. Well, good to meet you.
All right. So I want to let you in on my own personal struggle here. Okay. I don't know Kash Patel at all. I do know Dan Bongino fairly well and have an immense amount of respect for Dan. Okay. So I'm trying to give as much grace as I possibly can. All right. While also being thankful that these guys are running the show and not the people that turned it into the American Stasi over the last few years. Right. But I have questions and things like, why hasn't my buddy Steve Friend at least been given an honorable discharge so he can get a job in law enforcement, if not completely reinstated by now? Why can't we get the name of at least one person that Ghislaine Maxwell human trafficked to? How is it possible no one she human trafficked to has been prosecuted? Then why is she in prison for human trafficking to nobody? That makes no sense. What was the stunt that Pam Bondi pulled with the 3-ring binders a few months ago with the Epstein files? These are, how come Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just layering people in the health bureaucracy, but we're not seeing that at the FBI? And at the end of his Rogan interview, Kash Patel wanted to make sure at the end, he said, there's so many great people working there, right? So I've got my audience is yelling at me, you've got to get on these people and be tougher. One of them I consider someone I greatly respect, Tom, so I'm trying to give him as much grace as I can. I kind of use you as a weather vane for me here on this, because you're on the front lines of it. And I saw you yesterday asking some of these tough questions now. So I thought, okay, maybe it's time to start asking our pals some tough questions. So do you think it's time, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know why what I think ought to happen isn't happening. I can speculate. We could talk, Steve, for hours about how the giant bureaucracies work and how the politics and pressure result in certain outcomes. But I think as citizens and as folks who have been abused really by the deep state, we have a right to expect certain things are going to happen. A comprehensive criminal investigation, a commitment to transparency under law. And I frankly think these institutions, specifically the FBI, can't be trusted to investigate a jaywalking crime. And they should go the way of the FBI should go the way of the USAID or Department of Education. And so it's frustrating to see Dan and Kash come in and talk about all the hires they're doing and, letting cops be cops. The FBI aren't cops in the traditional sense of the word. They're federal employees with law enforcement powers who've, through an agency and a culture, have consistently abused those powers to achieve political results for those asking them to do it. And we saw it as recently as last year. So forgive me for thinking that there has to be some urgency to deal with an issue such as Justice Department and FBI and other agencies who tried to jail Trump last year and end our republic. So it's not 3 months, it's not 4 months, we're up to 6 months. I haven't seen any major transparency initiatives, no evidence of a comprehensive criminal investigation, and it's just not happening. And I'm getting frustrated when I'm learning of documents they're reviewing and they're telling us what they show, and we don't have them. And they're fighting us in court. We're going to be in court tomorrow. We have this case about the censorship operations that the deep state was running, and specifically the Biden administration. FBI had 2 meetings with Twitter in 2021. They've got documents about what they're going to talk about. They don't want to give us the information. So we're going to be in federal court against Kash Patel's FBI and Pam Bondi's Justice Department, where they're defending the Biden FBI secrecy on censorship and targeting of American citizens.
What could be again, you're closer to this. This is what you do all day, brother. So give us a benign, innocent explanation for why that would be the case on their end.
Well, FOIA's complicated. There are lots of FOIA cases, so maybe they're not focused on the transparency or the specific nature of how FOIA operates. As to why they're not dissembling the FBI, maybe President Trump doesn't think that's something he wants to do right now, although I don't think that's been presented to him as an opportunity. I don't think they're terribly interested in doing it. And then thirdly, the agency itself is compromised. So if you go in there, Steve, you're one of 3 or 4 people at the top of the FBI who are appointees of the president for practical purposes. You say, we got to figure out what the heck we're doing here. We need to start investigating everyone who worked here on this case. I mean, criminally investigating them. What do you think the deep staters are going to say? You can't do that. You'll tear the agency apart. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation is, and I think it gives Kash and Dan and Pam Bondi and the team at Justice some breathing room, the president just take all of these issues outside of the agencies. They're conflicted and compromised in the least. And he should set up a separate presidential investigative unit, prosecutorial unit. He has the power under the Constitution to do so. Heck, our founders did it all the time, and they report to him. It's just get them out of it.
Let me ask you about what I'm asking, and tell me if my questions are reasonable. Is there a reason we cannot at least get one name of somebody Ghislaine Maxwell human trafficked to? There has to be a human traffickee. Can't we get at least one certifiable name? Can't one person be prosecuted by this FBI and DOJ that was not before for being on the receiving end of Ghislaine Maxwell's human trafficking that she may be in prison for the rest of her life for? Is that a reasonable ask on my part? Just one.
Well, the legal conclusion you draw that someone has to be prosecuted who it hasn't been prosecuted yet, I don't know. And the way to get the answer to that is to figure out what the documents show about who did what and how. Mm-hmm. And that's why we sued for the documents months ago. We haven't gotten anything. The federal government, the Justice Department, FBI just answered our lawsuit the other day, said there were exceptional circumstances in dealing with our lawsuit for the Epstein files. And we have no clue when we're going to get the records. They didn't tell the court, they didn't tell us. And they haven't given us one document since we sued. Not one document.
Let me ask again, what would be the benign, innocent explanation for that?
I don't think there's any real legitimate excuse at this point. Mm-hmm. It's not like they don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, the Epstein case is a pretty high priority issue publicly for the administration, certainly Attorney General Bondi and Kash. They're looking at the files. I mean, I'm going to blow a gasket the next time I see Kash or Dan on TV talking about what they're reading in the files. And we haven't gotten anything.
FBI whistleblowers like Steve Friend, and I know they're not all the same, but so I'm just going to talk about Steve for a second because I know Steve personally. All right. And I mean, this guy cannot get a local sheriff job because he's blacklisted right now. I want to offer maximum deference to our guys here. So okay, you can't reinstate him because it would upset the equilibrium in the ecosystem of the entire FBI. Fine. Why can't they have at least what amounts to some kind of an honorable discharge so these guys can go out and make a living again and be given some form of recognition for what they did to come forward and tell the truth? Because in many respects, they helped to contribute to this last election win as well by the things that they disclosed. So is it too much for me to ask that on behalf of my friend Steve Friend? Is that too tough of an ask?
No, it's not. And the fact that the whistleblowers haven't been vindicated or provided justice is a real black mark on Kash's and Dan's tenure thus far. There's no good reason for it. I know all the reasons why it isn't being done, why it isn't done, because we've been representing whistleblowers and working with whistleblowers for decades here at Judicial Watch. It's because the FBI culturally and institutionally doesn't want to do it, and the leadership isn't going to buck it or haven't bucked it yet. No excuses.
Driving in this morning, thinking about the conversation you and I were about to have, and it dawned on me. Where is the expose on the math club shooter in Butler, PA last year? Where is the full dossier file of everything that we know, we found out about the guy who, came within a millimeter of assassinating the future president of the United States? And I bring that up because I will tell you, I had private conversations with Dan on text, going back and forth, checking with him with the Secret Service knowledge. Hey, when I'm going to go on the air and say about this, does this jive? I mean, is this reality? And he was very strenuous about this during on television at the time. So why haven't we gotten more information on that? Why haven't we had a come to Jesus meeting on all of that to this point?
So the benign explanation for the Florida near assassination is that it's an ongoing law enforcement investigation. That's a benign explanation. It's a typical reason to withhold information. I don't necessarily think releasing it would impair law enforcement proceedings as much as they say, but at least there is, it's a relatively standard response. Up in Butler, I don't know what's going on. When the guy is dead, is there an ongoing law enforcement investigation in Butler that requires them to withhold information? Obviously not. And it's best, I have to go back, I haven't checked recently, but we've got FOIA requests, and not one document has been released under FOIA to us, either from the Secret Service or the FBI, as best I can tell, on the shooting. We've gotten documents from the local police and law enforcement up that way, but nothing yet from the feds on it. Again, there's no good excuse for that in my view.
What's the best thing you think they have done since they took over, Tom?
They've gotten rid of a few of the bad apples there. They've moved them and fired them. They're obviously committed to trying to figure out some of what went on. There's a release. Well, I don't know. There isn't a release. There's a report that documents were given to Congress, and specifically Senator Chuck Grassley, and Kash Patel has a tweet about it and has promoted it, how the Chinese were trying to rig our election in 2020. But I just asked Kash on Twitter, when are we going to get the documents? I don't want to see people talking about documents and saying we're releasing documents, or we released them and they're not they're not available to the public. And that's not Dan's. Kash's promise was to be transparent, and a public leak where you can't see all the documents, you're not sure what they're withholding. It's partly transparent, but not fully transparent.
Tom, you guys are doing important work over there at Judicial Watch. I know a lot of our audience is already supportive and aware, but for those that aren't, how can they follow what you guys do?
Oh, they go to judicialwatch.org, judicialwatch.org, and of course we're all over social media, as you know, Steve. And it's just great work, and it's frustrating, I tell you, to have to go to court against this administration. I just think those in charge of the agencies at the FBI, DOJ, and frankly, any other agency, there are no more excuses. I'm tired of the reindeer games on just basic transparency requests.
Well, my inbox tends to agree with you. All right, I'll say that. Good to see you, Tom. And we will not wait 10 years until we do this again, I promise you. Okay? Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Now, that's an example of what I was just talking about. I mean, that was not the most comfortable conversation I'm going to have today, because that kind of goes against my own narrative, but my promise to you guys is to follow the truth. And so that means sometimes I got to challenge my own narratives, even about people I know and I like. So Todd, Aaron, what do you guys think of that conversation we just had with Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch?
Yeah, the level of kind of exhaustion that you feel from him, I think is evident of something I'm lamenting. The tone that we are establishing right now in no way seems to be accepting what happened to us during the first 4 years of Biden on a number of fronts. This isn't just a intelligence issue. It's just the entire modus operandi of, yes, there are political enemies. They hate us. They plan to do harm to us. They plan on jailing us. They plan on jabbing us, any number of things. And we can't react with the level of proportion that is just and moral and that is required. That is what I'm hearing from Tom Fitton. And if I'm accurate about that, I concur 100%.
To me, I'm kind of vexed, and you can hear that coming out through Tom Fitton's commentary there as well. I'm vexed because I'm simultaneously sympathetic and frustrated with this. And trying to give these guys the maximum benefit of the doubt while also having high standards for what we expect from them. Again, I'm violating my own standards versus expectations talk, but we can't let Kash Patel go down in history as FBI director a couple more weeks, because that's a phrase that I've heard him say a lot. Oh, just wait a couple more weeks, next 100 days. He can't go down like that. And I hope that that's not where this thing is trending. But it is the darndest thing that we have not heard or not seen basically anything of consequence for the most part from this new FBI.
Yeah, I think you said it well there. Vexed, but sympathetic at the same time. Yes. All right, hour 2. Little town hall we're going to conduct here and try to come now and reason together about a debate that is really raging on our side right now. The Middle East, foreign policy, how to proceed moving forward. Next. Stay tuned. All right, we're back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre, Todd Erzen, and all of you. And you can let us all know, though hopefully not all at once, what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you guys wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review wherever you podcast from. Thanks to all of you who have. You can also hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes, follow. And that way you'll know for sure that every time we do a new episode, it shows up for sure right there in your podcast feed. And thanks all of you that have done that for us too. Want to thank our friends over at Preborn who want to thank you. The generosity of our audience here at The Blaze and this partnership with Preborn helped to save almost 70,000 babies last year. So, well done. Good and faithful servants. Let's keep it going, because we're living in an era right now where, yes, praise God, we are watching Planned Parenthood clinics close all over the country. However, we're about to have to pray imprecatory prayers against our mailboxes, because we're turning the mailbox into a potential mailbox into every single abortion clinic if we can, with the so-called abortion drug. And now you have this new FDA study that shows 11% of women are having, quote, serious adverse effects from this devastating pill, which even when it works is devastating because it makes you complicit in murder. So let's be even more generous, even more intentional about helping preborns succeed in its mission to save as many babies from their mamas and thus save their mamas as well as we possibly can. Make your tax-deductible donation today at preborn.com/Steve. You never know, for as low as $28, you might have funded the ultrasound that will save a baby's life and maybe a mama's soul today. Preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve, or dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. Pound 250, keyword baby on your mobile phone. And then, reminder, Amazon finally listed us in the category we initially applied for. We want Richie Meets the Rainbow to be listed among LGBTQ plus FU books on Amazon.com. They put it up there in that category yesterday. All right, so now we're really going to impress on you guys. Get your copy of Richie Meets the Rainbow, the retail edition, if you haven't already. Get it today so that you can help our book to trend in the category where it belongs. I mean, they want to own the Pride Month and the Pride story. Well, by golly, we should make sure that they have the origin of that which they want to own at the exact same time, and I aim to give it to them. All right. So go to richiemeetstherainbow.com, click the Order Now button. That'll take you right to the Amazon page, RICHIE, or just go to Amazon and search for Richie Meets the Rainbow right there in the search bar. And I've noticed now, enough of you have done that when you start typing it in for the first time now, it's coming up in my search bar too. So thank you guys for bending the algorithm to your will. Thank you for that. All right. So just $15 to make sure you help our book trend in the LGBTQ FU section. Not to mention, you're going to really like it. It's a fun book. It's a Dr. Seuss kind of approach to things. And Dad is the hero again. All right, Richie Meets the Rainbow is what you're looking for at Amazon.com, RICHIE. All right, we're going to do an entire hour now, fake news or not, kind of a town hall style. And I've had Todd assemble a series of things said on social media by various perspectives and people that all of you, or pretty much all of you, are going to know their names. All right, because this is our attempt to assemble an all-star panel of people we probably couldn't do in the real, let alone figure out how to navigate it, even if we could. So what if we just took some of their most notable comments on events that are happening in the Middle East right now, and we just shared them with you and discussed them from our best understanding. Remember three-dimensional thinking? We used to talk about that on the show a lot.
Yep.
Know why you believe what you believe. That's the first dimension. That's a biblical command. That comes right from the mouth of Peter himself. Do you have reasons for the hope that you have? Right? So that's the first dimension. The second dimension is to know why others believe what they believe. Right? And then the third dimension, and this is when we get to persuasion, is to know what other people believe about what you believe. All right? That's where we get to persuasion. Okay? So we have observation. I mean, do you even know yourself what you believe? Then we have connection. All right, you're making a connection with people. You're understanding where they're coming from. Do you know why they believe what they believe? And then we get to persuasion when you find out what they believe about what you believe, because now you can answer objections. All right, so we're going to try to do that as best we can without giving you a verdict. If you get a verdict, it'll be unintentional. Doesn't mean we won't give you one. It just means that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is to try to compile as many people that you guys know and respect and are fans of as we can, because this is going to be one of the biggest debates that's going to happen in this era on our side right now. You are watching one narrative, one or the other, is going to collapse here in real time. Now, I will tell you, if we were keeping score, if we were on the decision desk for the Blaze on election night right now, it looks like Team Levin is in real good shape with the early returns. Fair?
I think so.
Okay. Yep. We would say right now, the way the electorate is shaping up right now, there hasn't been a bunch of undue casualties. Trump's language has gotten more aggressively pro-Israel and anti-Iran in the last couple of days, right? Okay. Trump's even taken swipes at Tucker Carlson publicly and a couple, not just, in response to a question, but even put out Truth Social posts calling him kooky. Right now, for the way the election looks right now, I'd rather be, if I was looking to win, I'd rather be Team Levin than Team Tucker right now. But that's right now. Just as a week ago, this was not even on our radar screens that we're going to be having this conversation. I'm just telling you guys, it takes one errant bomb. It takes one intelligence mistake. It takes one miscalculation for this entire narrative to change. So again, right now, it looks like Team Levin is winning right now. But Have any states been called yet?
No.
Nothing's been called. The early exits look good for Team Levin, but we aren't calling any states yet. This thing is far from over. Now, with that said, I think it's important that you guys understand the bias that I'm coming at this from, because I'm human, so I'm going to bring my own bias. Okay? So I am not declaratively in either of these camps. I have things I agree with and disagree with in both camps. And again, it is not because I am trying to be above it all. It's because I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know. But that doesn't mean I don't have any biases, and here they are. There are times that Trump's utter pragmatism has frustrated me, because utter pragmatism at times is not congruent with the biblical worldview. At times it is. In this case, it is. So these are my two biases. Number one, Donald Trump has an immense amount of rope here as far as I'm concerned, because he's the most successful foreign policy president since I came of voting age. And man, I was even saying that during the last primary when I was trying to beat him with Ron DeSantis. Even I was saying that's Trump's strongest suit. Have I ever departed from that?
No.
Based on the evidence, that's been clear the entire time. And here's the thing too, his greatest successes have actually come in the very region of the world that we're talking about right now. Right? So we don't have to project at all. We don't have to say, hey, Trump did a great trade deal with China, so that means he can absolutely make this happen in the Middle East. Well, completely different worldviews here. The clash is going back centuries, ages, millennia. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In this case, he's successfully already navigated this very region of the world. So with all due respect to people that are doubting which way he's leaning in both Team Levin and Team Tucker, he's got way more proof of concept with me than any of you guys. He's done the thing. He's done the thing. That's number one. Number two, I think this is where his utter pragmatism works to our benefit. I'm telling you right now that if the initial Israeli strike did not go off as precise and devastating as it did, if it was clumsy, if it made a couple of serious miscalculations, if it had accidentally bombed an OB/GYN ward of babies, Trump would have cut bait. Trump is not on some neocon mission to bring democracy to the Middle East. It's just about what he believes is winning. Nothing more, nothing less. So why has he become increasingly more bullish against Iran in the last few days? Because Israel has shown they're a bit of a paper tiger here. And if there's one thing Trump's never going to let happen, is someone get a win he deserves on his watch. I think we all agree that ain't happening. Okay? So the idea that that Bibi was going to expose that Iran's a bit of a paper tiger here, and Trump was just going to say, by golly, make sure Bibi gets all the credit for that. No way. Nope. I trust that. I trust that motivation because I know where it's coming from. I can rely on it. I don't always agree with it, and at times on our show, we've aired that disagreement. But I trust it. I know where it's coming from. And in this case, it's to our benefit. The minute that this looks whatsoever, man, like people, the American people are exhausted with this, eject, eject, eject. And again, we have proof of concept here too, do we not? Trump can change an entire narrative in one day if he figures out that's not going to get me the win that I want. How many times have we seen this? And that's worked both for and against us over the years, right?
Well, that's what's thrown world leaders across the
For a
entire
loop.
globe for
Correct.
a loop for
Correct.
a decade now, yes.
So I don't believe there's any other motivation listen, Trump has said for his entire career, and the Trump White House came out with like 10 years of clips yesterday of him saying Iran cannot have a nuclear missile. He has thought this his entire political ascendancy. But here's the thing. He thought that before without bombing Iran. Okay? You can think something, but then acting on it is completely different. Why is he why is at least he seems to be at least willing to act here? Because Israel has shown they're weak, or at least weaker than we assumed. If Israel had done this, and then like half of Tel Aviv was a smoldering ash right now, think Trump would be tweeting out on Truth Social, no surrender? Think he'd be like he just did an hour ago? You think he's going to be posting that?
No.
No, he's going to be saying, get to the negotiating table. Let's start bargaining. All right? You can trust in his pragmatism. The minute this goes south, the minute he thinks this is not the win he's looking for, he's going to cut bait, guys. He's out. I'm telling you, I campaigned against this guy for a year. I didn't know what to do with the fact we would go back into strategy meetings like dude, in the debate, he admitted he filed bankruptcy 4 times and bragged that it was a successful choice. How do we get back? We're like, we don't know what to do with that. Guy just don't, yeah, you're right. Of course I filed bankruptcy. Why would I take an L if I don't have to? Pass on the debt. Somebody else can take care of it. I'm not going to eat it. Oh. Okay, then you see what I'm saying? He's not going to just sit here and take an L. The minute that this thing has any hint of heading south, dude is pulling the chute. I trust in that. Any thoughts on those 2 biases of mine before we move on to then let other people speak the rest of the hour?
First one, proof of concept. Second one, art of the deal.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much summed it up there.
Yep,
yes.
I'm good.
All right, let's begin. Okay, let's start. All right, Aaron, you got the first one. This is from the Vice President this morning. Vice President Vance says, look, I'm seeing this from the inside, and I'm admittedly biased towards our president and my friend, but there's a lot of crazy stuff on social media, so I wanted to address some things directly on the Iran issue. First, the president has been amazingly consistent over 10 years that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Over the last few months, he encouraged his foreign policy team to reach a deal with the Iranians to accomplish this goal. The president has made clear that Iran cannot have uranium enrichment, and he said repeatedly that this would happen one of 2 ways, the easy way or the other way. Pardon me. Second, I've seen a lot of confusion over the issue of civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment. These are distinct issues. Iran could have civilian nuclear power without enrichment, but Iran rejected that. Meanwhile, they've enriched uranium far above the level necessary for any civilian purpose. They've been found in violation of their non-proliferation obligations by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is hardly a right-wing organization. It's one thing to want civilian nuclear energy. It's another thing to demand sophisticated enrichment capacity. And it's still another to cling to enrichment while simultaneously violating basic non-proliferation obligations and enriching right to the point of weapons-grade uranium. So the vice president is saying that Iran has at least come to the line, at least come up to the line, if not crossed it. I have yet to see a single good argument for why Iran needed to enrich uranium well above the threshold for civilian use. I've yet to see a single good argument for why Iran was justified in violating its non-proliferation obligations. I've yet to see a single good pushback against the Atomic Agency's findings. Meanwhile, the president has shown remarkable restraint in keeping our military's focus on protecting our troops and protecting our citizens. He may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. That decision ultimately belongs to him. And of course, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy. But I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue, and I'm having seen things up close and personal, I can assure you that he is only invested in using the American military to accomplish the American people's goals. Whatever he does, that's his focus. So what I find fascinating about this is, number one, I agree with basically every single word of it. Number two, everybody here has various relationships and coalitions to balance. And in the case of JD, he is native to the Tucker Carlson wing. I mean, the Team Tucker and the people preeminent in that wing are as responsible for JD being the vice president as anybody other than JD and Donald Trump is. JD is for his obvious capabilities. Trump is because it was ultimately his call. But the people who really lobbied on his behalf are largely within Team Tucker. So, I mean, this is JD saying that absolutely to Team Tucker, the evidence is there that Iran has gone too far and they should have taken the deal when it was offered. I don't know that Team Levin, which is not necessarily the biggest JD Vance fans, I'm not so sure they'd have much that they would disagree with here, or at least much that they'd be willing to disagree with right now, shall we say. You guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you entirely on this. I just got done quite passionately last week talking about, is the West allowed, whether it's Israel or not, to defend itself? We can't be naive about the evidence of these lines. He paints a really important picture about the difference between civilian and weaponized uranium. We don't have to be dupes. We have a right to draw our lines in the sand. Absolutely. But then this week, as soon as I see aggressive posturing, even in polls, and in support of getting involved from a U.S. perspective, I'm like, that's I have qualms. Let's just say that. So the vice president, being a grown-up, is capable of acknowledging the opinions of those who got them here, while also saying, I am the vice president under a president who has been unambiguous about what he thinks about Iran and the point they brought us to. This is very sober-minded. This is leadership, and that's what our theme is this year. Lead. We're not.
Thank you for reminding me of that. By the way,
we're not being baited and switched. We're not being prodded along for electoral reasons. This is high stakes political poker right here, and there's no reason to be overly emotional about any of it.
I think what the vice president is saying in a more fleshed out way is get a grip. The president is not a neocon, but he's not also an isolationist.
Yeah, that's it.
So I think a lot of people are falling, and I've done this in the past. Lord knows I've done this in the past, trying to typecast President Trump into some sort of ideological box. It's a fool's errand. Kind of as you articulated at the outset of this conversation, Steve, he is. Once he sees that something that he's doing or an effort that he's embarked on is not going to have its intended result or impact, he can cut tail and run. So stop trying to put him in a box. And I think too many people, I mean, all of the George W. Trump jokes that are going around this week. You talked about Dave Smith. I mean, we haven't even taken any action yet. That may be coming. But we're leaping to these overreactions, and I think it's largely because we're just, that means he's considering a strike on Iran. That automatically means he's a neocon, nation builder, and see ya. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I think we have to avoid the temptation that everything is either World War II or Iraq.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I think too many people in both Team Levin and Team Tucker, if we could get them together in a room, everything is either... So we just let the Nazis just overrun Europe. We just let the Japs have the Pacific. Okay. Everything's either World War II. Okay. Or everything's Iraq. Okay. So, well, we can't we just have to essentially be simps for Islam. Don't get into either one of those boxes. Okay. And that's why I told you my bias at the beginning was trusting the president here, because he has shown he can navigate this without sinking into one of those two boxes, one of those two pits. That's how he's successfully done it. Is he avoided them both. All right. So we should follow his lead then as much as you can in your thinking. Do not reduce everything now. Everything in the Middle East is either Iraq or everything in the world, again, is World War II. Try to stay out of those two pits. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Congressman Chip Roy. Strategic limited support for Israel's targeting and denial of Iranian nukes equals good. Effort for ground troops, regime change, soccer fields, supplemental soccer fields. Yeah. Put that in there. Supplemental funding, in other words, do-gooderism. All right. Or endless war garbage of the last 25 years equals bad. It hasn't been done right in a long time. Let's get it right. In many respects, I think, even though Chip and the president have often been found at odds over budget reconciliation bills of the first 6 months, I think the president would agree with every jot and tittle and syllable of what Chip Roy probably just wrote there. And if I had told you that came from Stephen Miller and not Chip Roy, you probably would have believed it, that it came from someone high up in the White House. All right. I don't know that either Team Levin or Team Tucker, many of the people would be completely satisfied with what Chip wrote there. And that's quintessential Chip Roy. Okay. Thoughts?
I think another thing that people are struggling with, and I don't even know how much I agree with this, but I think on some level, wouldn't you say we're already in a forever war with Iran to some degree, just because of how they've tried? I mean, are they not the number one state sponsor of terror or not?
Yes.
So on some level, to some degree, we've already been engaged in forever. And I'm not saying this is justification for turning up the dial at all. I do not want boots on the ground. Okay, I'm very skittish about even bombing campaigns, just because I think that might be a gateway drug to the other thing. But on some level, we've already been engaged in a forever war with Iran, just through different means.
Correct. I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah, and I think the soccer thing, this has come from me, is hilarious, but it's a point on the lies we've told ourselves, the narratives we've told ourselves as men in particular, and not simply in order to avoid brutal truths. Because of what Aaron just said, and if we have to use dark humor about it to get to the place where we just will not convince ourselves anymore that the people of Iran on some level aren't they can't be held accountable for their choices. The people of Israel, ultimately, and founding of that country aren't accountable for those choices. And we aren't either of them. We don't live in that place. We live very far away. And that the choice of living in those places is never something that is going to be placated by the folly that Chip Roy is talking about. Either we get very sober about putting the brakes on this thing peacefully, as Donald Trump has said, I tried to bring you to the table, or we are way beyond just putting thumbs in the dike. This is existential, and the sooner all of you come to realize the fact that we are on the edge of existence, literally, you'll think more smartly about where we can go from here. If you won't do that, there's no level of utopianism that's going to solve these problems.
All right, let's get to the next one. Our friend and colleague Daniel Horowitz, the key for Trump, assuming he is getting involved, is to ensure everyone that we have no interest in the day after, and that is up to the Iranian people. The Air Force will do what it does best, which is to break their crap so that whatever emerges thereafter can't use it. So this is a distinction Daniel is drawing here, that there can be a punishment for an evil regime without chasing after utopian schemes, okay? In other words, hey, when a cop arrests the person invading your home, the cop is not responsible for putting your family and your home back together after that awful traumatic experience. His job was to get the bad guy out of your home and to punish that bad guy, right? Your job, since that's your home and your family, your job is to now put that home and family back together again after that traumatic experience of evil that just happened to them. And that's what Daniel is saying here. Yes. All right. We'll be, if you need us to come in, all right, if you're calling the cops, we can come in, all right, and take out the bad guy, but then you are responsible for what happens in your home after the fact. Now, Team Levin will love that message. Team Tucker is going to say, we're not interested in being cops. That's not our job. We're bad at it. We suck at it, and we're not any good at it. And if the Iranian people want to get rid of this and take out the trash, they have the means. Just do it themselves. That's their problem. We got enough of our own. Look at our own country where they want to kidnap our kids. Half the guidance counselors in America want to, castrate our kids. We should be punishing them, not the Iranian high command. Okay? And that's the part of the argument on Team Tucker I'm very sympathetic to. Okay? All right? And so your thoughts. That's my best attempt to try to give you what I think both Tucker and Mark would say in response to Daniel's text or tweet.
I agree. Don't be cops. But this is the point I'm trying to make. The Iranian people are ultimately on the hook for making new decisions about new realities if they are facing a new reality. But as Chip Roy said, that kind of nation building stuff, they've learned how to play us over and over and over again, manipulate us, play us for suckers. Absolutely not. So, but it's also not very clear military responses that are unambiguous in there. This is going to keep happening unless you stop it.
I also think there's some onus on Israel here, too. I think it was very apparent over the weekend that regime change was their objective here.
I agree with that.
I think that became crystal clear over the weekend, and now it's just reality from Trump's rhetoric, even as we speak this morning, that regime change was the goal. So, do they have a plan for that as well? I know the Crown Prince in exile, Reza Pahlavi, I think it is, he's been very vocal in recent days. Does he come in and try to assert leadership? Because I think what we've also seen from Iran, there's not much organized resistance. And that's due to the fact that they've been living under the iron fist of a terrible regime. There's really no organized resistance. So they're going to have some help from Israel. I think if they'll even accept that, they need some help in organizing that country afterwards. And I don't know what that looks like, and that's a problem, at least from my vantage point, but maybe there's a plan in the works.
Is the next one from Oran, correct?
Yes.
All right, this one will be pretty quick, actually. Oran McIntyre, our friend and colleague, says, sure, we're currently losing a proxy war. That's the Ukraine war he's talking about. That cost us hundreds of billions of dollars that Biden promised would be over in a few months. But have you considered starting a second hot war simultaneously in the Middle East that will most certainly be over in a few months? That's good. Tucker, the Team Tucker, like that's a song hymnal. That's a hymnal in the Team Tucker hymnal book. Fair? I think Team Levin would probably say, Trump is not Joe Biden, and the Israeli Defense Force is not Zelensky, as you've already seen, okay? Which caused Putin to back off. That Israel did more damage to Iran in a week than Putin's been able to do to Kiev in 3 years, okay? So that's a psalm to Team Tucker. But go ahead.
We also found out this week, in the last week, that Russia's military is not that great.
Yeah,
it's not that modern anyway.
All right, so that's a psalm. That's in the book of Psalms for Team Tucker. What Oran put there. Team Levin would just simply reject it whole cloth and say different president, different military. They're not congruent scenarios. You think that's a fair characterization? How they'd both respond?
Well,
yes.
It's an understandable way, but I just think, like October 7th happened. This isn't like a start.
But Oran would come back and say Russia invading, Ukraine in April of 2022 happened. So what? That's what the comeback would be. Yeah, that happened. So what? Again, I think he would say we're not arguing about what Israel's doing to Iran. We're arguing about whether we ought to have any involvement in it whatsoever.
Well,
okay.
I have that argument as well. I think he needs to, with all due respect, just make that more plain.
Okay. All right. Aaron, your thoughts real quick? You got about a minute?
Yeah, I totally share that sentiment. When I say skittish about any sort of involvement, that's what I'm talking about. Just the gateway drug into more involvement in this and in that. And we need to set up some boots on the ground. I'm very skittish about that.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm saying this as somebody who trusts Trump. But guys, I came of age. I'm 32.
100%.
I came of age hearing dispatches from Middle Eastern countries about nation building.
This very camel's nose under the tent.
Exactly.
And then it's the beak, and then it's the torso.
It's not that I don't trust President Trump. It's just this is who millennials are. If we've been paying attention.
All right. Let us know, by the way, how we're doing with this so far. Because my goal here today is really to give you guys as much of a town hall on our side as we're probably never going to, in any other context, get access to. All right, because these two teams, man, are in an existential fight for control of the foreign policy narrative moving forward, right? So I'm not saying, again, we're above it all. We're just not the know-it-alls, and we're just taking a little time out to consider every position, because a lot of the people in these various teams are people we like and respect. All right? And we've agreed with on multiple matters in the future. We're going to continue this in a moment. Stay tuned. Well, it's getting hot. We just suddenly hit summer here in late spring. We were all wearing sweatshirts here in the Midwest last week. And now it's like 90 in the shade. So here's the thing. Here's when I'm not sweating this out, though. Bedtime. Because I got my Miracle Made sheets. And I friggin' love these things, man. All right. They are phenomenal. The silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA that help with thermoregulating your perfect sleep temperature all night long. Like I've been telling you, this is going on this will be the third summer now with Miracle Made sheets. And the first time we had them was when we had that incredible heat wave in July of 23. And our AC broke here in the building. So I'm sweating it out here. I'm not sweating it out at home. I'm not even running the ceiling fan at night anymore in the summertime because of these sheets. I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're also very comfy, very comfy. All right. So comfort, quality, design for your skin. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/Deace. Get your Miracle Made sheets today. Whether it's for you or a gift for someone else, you'll get over 40% off at trymiracle.com/Deace. And if you enter in promo code Deace at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20% as well. You can't beat it. You'll thank me later. I promise you. Trymiracle.com/Deace to treat yourself Use that promo code DACE for extra savings and extra goodies. TryMiracle.com/DACE, promo code DACE at TryMiracle.com/DACE. All right, let's continue on. We're trying to give you as many perspectives as we can from both Team Levin and Team Tucker people, and a lot of them are people you will know, names you'll have heard of in the past, and then what we think the other side would say about their perspective. Aaron, let's keep rolling along. All right, this is from Sean Davis over at The Federalist. Want a quick history of Western meddling in Iran? In 1921, the Brits tapped Reza Khan, a soldier in Iran's imperial army, to engineer a coup against the dynasty that had run Iran since 1789. It took several years, but in 1925, the coup succeeded. Khan was made king or Shah of Iran. Khan modernized the country, building a national railroad system that linked the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf. However, because oil-rich Iran was neutral in World War II, the Brits and Soviets invaded it in 1941, believing the government was too cozy with the Axis. They deposed Khan, whom the Brits had installed just 16 years earlier, and tapped his son, Mohammad Reza Khan Pahlavi, to replace him. That didn't last long either. After the popular Shia political leader Mohammad Masada was appointed prime minister and made good his promise to nationalize the country's oil industry, the Brits teamed up with the U.S. CIA and overthrew him and the country's democratically elected parliament. Although the U.S. initially opposed Great Britain's heavy-handed approach to Iran, calling it rule or ruin, the takeover of American foreign policy by the corrupt Dulles brothers under Eisenhower changed everything. Masada went from Times Man of the Year in 1952 to being overthrown and imprisoned in 1953. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest before dying of cancer in 1967. His associates, many of whom had just been democratically elected, were tortured and executed. The CIA-installed government reversed his oil nationalization and banned his National Front political party from the 54 elections. The Shah's rule, backstopped by Western governments, became increasingly oppressive and violent. The populist anger from the CIA-orchestrated coups boiled for decades until exploding in 1979, resulting in the Iranian Revolution and the overthrow of the Shah, which led to the Islamic theocracy, which has ruled the country and terrorized the region for nearly 50 years. But I'm sure this time it will be different. There will be no downsides or adverse consequences, and everything will turn out awesome. True neoconservatism has just never been tried. Great line there at the end, channeling Chesterton there about true Christianity has never really been tried. So, of course, that's brilliantly written from Sean because he's pretty brilliant. You can clearly say, so if what Oran gave you was one of the Psalms out of Team Tucker, this is from either the law or the prophets, okay? All right. What Sean has written here is after Oran is done leading the worship, okay, Sean now brings you the homily, and that's what this is. I mean, this is something that would have taken Tucker's breath away, and I mean that as a compliment to Sean, okay? Now, what I think Team Levin is going to say is, great, what did Israel have to do with like any of that? This all stuff happened going back to the 20s. Israel wasn't even a country. It wasn't even on the radar of being a country in 1921 or 25. So, Team Levin would say, by your own admission, Israel's not the fulcrum here. Iran is. So why are y'all pissed at us? All right, they're the ones coming after us. That's what they would say. Whether you agree with that or not, that would be their counter to that. And they would also say yet again, hey, all those people are dead. Trump has demonstrated he knows what he's doing here. Let the man cook. That's what they would say. Fair?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Again, we're not here to pronounce a verdict. You guys have to make that decision. We're going to treat you guys as adults and trust you can make your own decisions. What we want to do is the best we can to introduce you to as many perspectives from people that, just like you, we by and large like and respect on some level, who are now in vehement disagreement with one another. Okay?
Along with one perspective I don't think is in there adequately enough is the Israel point, as you already mentioned, but again, the Iranian people. This is chess masters playing leadership games. We have to find out, is there the people that really want something different? And is Israel prepared? As Netanyahu, one of his primary things, he reached out to the Iranian people. Is that a real play? It means nothing if it's coming from us, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But from Israel, it might mean something.
It might.
While they're being bombed by the missiles. Do you want to have
It also could have the opposite effect. We don't know. It could actually unify the people all the more and say, the Ayatollahs are right about those pesky Jews all along, talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Either way, if the onus is on Israel, we find out.
Agreed. I am not married to either one of these narratives winning. I am married to, I want to know what the truth is. And I'm fine with just finding out. Okay? But there's a lot of people right now that have a lot of risk on if we find out that it's not their narrative, okay? I'm not in that group, so I get the benefit of having a conversation without fear of what the outcome is. I have no narrative I'm concerned about being affirmed here. That doesn't mean I'm exempted from having a narrative I want affirmed in every conversation. I've got plenty. Believe me, I didn't really enjoy asking Tom Fitton, hey, can you tell me why my buddy Dan's not doing a good job? I wasn't really fond of that conversation. Don't think you saw me like smiling, and whistling Dixie over here. Okay, so I'm not saying that there's never a time where I'm not eager to have a conversation because I know it's going to challenge my own narrative. This is not one of those times. I'm not married to either one of these narratives, at least not right now. That may change. But not right now. All right, next, Jack Posobiec. Again, man, this is again like the prophet Amos just came in from shepherding the fields, and jotted down for the Church of Team Tucker a little prophesying. Okay, this is like justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a mighty stream here. Jack writes, regime change, recent scorecard, Iraq, chaos, death, Shia takeover. Syria, refugees fled Europe, ISIS. Afghanistan, Taliban won, got our equipment. Libya, Benghazi, refugees fled Europe. Ukraine, massive war, countless deaths. All of that factually accurate and true. What I find fascinating, though, because a lot of people know Jack because dude is a native MAGAite. Fair? And I think if you were here, he would take that as a compliment.
Yes.
Okay? Because what the Team Levin's people would say back to Jack was President Trump on the hook for any of the things you just mentioned? No. Those things all happened when he was not president. So why are we projecting the failures of presidents not named Donald Trump onto Trump? That part about it, I do find that fascinating personally. That all of Jack's criticisms are correct, but they all happened as a result of leaders that were not named Donald Trump, who's his guy, right? So the Team Levin stuff, if the Team Levin guys were here, they would say, don't you trust your own guy? Because he's not responsible for any of that. You don't think he knows what he's doing? Don't think he doesn't agree with all that? That's why he didn't make those mistakes the first time. Why do you think he's going to make them now? Fair, unfair? What do you think?
No, I agree with that. I think we're in a position... A lot of people are MAGA because, Steve, as you pointed out, there's just worldviews involved that no longer can coexist, and they're finally starting to realize that the various excuses and compromises they made in the past don't apply anymore. Well, put that as it applies to Israel. Again, Israel started this a week ago, and it didn't. A lot of people didn't see it coming. But this is Israel's MAGA. This is Israel and Iran. We cannot keep existing like we're not doing October 7th again.
You know what? Can I pause right there? A little birdie said something to me today that I think reinforces your point. And a little birdie said to me today, you know how you talk on your show a lot, how Trump definitely has a different sense of purpose and discipline since he got shot in the face? He goes, Bibi's had a myriad of health issues in the last couple of years. He's had corruption investigations, everything else. This is his last lap. He's been talking about this for 30 years. This is his posterity. He means business. He's going, he goes, I have been a frequent Bibi critic. There is, because I thought he's just a chicken hawk all these years, rousing people up and then doing nothing about it. He is bound and determined. He's going to finish this baby. This is his last lap, his lasting legacy. October 7th was for him what Trump getting shot in the face was for him, okay, in terms of a centering moment. So just wanted to pass that along.
Yeah, and that is what it is. No matter, we have to accept, you just said it last week multiple times. This happened, all right? And therefore, and it has to, and we have got to try to see it through their eyes in terms of a level existential viability that we've come to terms with on our own here in America, which is why you're MAGA. So I don't think you're necessarily in that list, Jack, with all due respect. You're making a good point, but it is also not all apples to apples.
Aaron, I'm going to give you you want to comment on this too? Go ahead.
I can just understand the sentiment, though. That, again, I think Jack is a millennial as well.
Yeah.
So you do not want to touch any sort of foreign entanglement with a 10-foot pole.
The vice president, millennial.
Just an out-of-hand rejection. I understand that sentiment.
I agree. All right, let's go next. Is it Sean Ryan is next?
Yes.
All right. I fought in enough fake wars. I think I'll sit this one out. I think I think what's been asked of our soldiers over the last couple of decades merits not reducing them to either a Team Levin or Team Tucker perspective. I think what's been asked of them, and then ultimately how their government has failed them in the aftermath of what they attempted to do, whether you believe in it or not, I think that has merited them to have any opinion that they want to have, frankly, for or against, without other than a tip of the cap and a thank you for your service. I think they reserve the right. They're the only group of people, I think, that get the exemption of you may have any position you want and not face any scrutiny for it. You earned it. Thank you for your service.
I was just struck juxtaposing it with the more lengthy explanations that others have had that we respect, how this cuts to the quick and draws out powerful emotions from me on both sides. One, in the way you just said. On the other, and it makes my point what I said before, it is very, between the reasons in terms of October 7th alone that Israel has to do this, nothing fake about that. But as it may be applied to people like Sean Ryan and his buddies who wear an American flag and not an Israeli flag, I get it.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to this one from Tim Pool. He is responding to the story of the Israeli Defense Force striking suspected nuclear sites in Iran. He says, Iran can't have nukes, so Israel starts bombing everything. This is why the nuke narrative is BS, meaning that obviously the amount of, if these things are radioactive and, enriched in some way, would that not risk massive contamination, radiation? I think that's what Tim is alluding to there. And so he's saying the fact that they're just recklessly and ruthlessly bombing these sites without any of that sort of concern would seem to indicate, just by their own actions, that entire reason for why they're doing this is not congruent with that fact.
I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with. We're not casting judgments here, are we?
No.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that assessment because they have been very targeted attacks, from what I can see anyway. I
do think it's a fair question to ask.
At least he's having the debate that we should be having.
I think it's a fair question to ask. It's similar to, if masks work, why don't they ever work, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and Tim would let you go on his show and say that. I know, I got to do that. Okay, so I do think it is fair to ask, and again, another millennial, do not take for granted that people understand these things, okay? It's a fair question to say that if you're going to tell people, hey, we're going to go in there and bomb them because they have all this nuclear material, well, then what does that do to all the radioactivity? If they're that, because enriching of the uranium is why they are nuclear, why they should be, and that's what JD said. They're right up at the line of enriching uranium, okay? So if we think they're at the line or may have gone over it to enriching uranium, should we be just in there just bombing places that may have uranium? That's his point, all right? Is that too simple of a question, do you think? Is it a fair question? I think the answer is we don't know. I think these are the kinds of questions, though, that are fair to ask, and frankly, our leaders should give answers to preemptively, so they don't have to be asked.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
What do you think?
It's a fair question, but is there an alternative?
I don't know.
See, I don't.
But this again is where you would explain this to people in advance so that they would know that.
The answer to Tim, you're absolutely right, but there's also no other choice. If it's a certainty that no, Iran cannot have nukes or come even up to the line, yes, what you're talking about is going to happen, but there's no other alternative as well, and that place needs to become the next Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That might be true too.
We got about 2 minutes here. Let's close with this note that Governor Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, left with the president this morning. Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. The decision on your shoulders, I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is one voice that matters, his voice. I am your appointed servant in this land. I'm available for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes, ears, and voice to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. You did not seek this moment, but the moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you. Mike Huckabee. Again, he's Trump's appointed ambassador to Israel. I think that's a good place. We didn't intend to end it. We actually had several more. We just didn't have time to get to. But I think that's actually a good place to end it. Because that is, we have sought a lot of wisdom in this final hour of the show. But what Mike is alluding to is the best source of wisdom to seek out. And the wisdom we most need right now. Final minute here. Let me say this. I hope you guys learned some things from what we did this hour. That was really our intent. And whether you find yourself on Team Tucker or Team Levin going in, maybe you've changed your mind, maybe you had not made up your mind and you were just more interested in finding out why people that you grew up and still now as an adult, buying their books, listening to their shows, are at war with one another pretty openly, why these issues are so defined. I think you can see really smart people exist on both sides. Okay? And there's plenty of reasons to be in either of these camps without, it's the Jews, or I need to make sure that America's foreign policy in 2024 lines up with a chapter in Genesis. Or everything's World War II, or everything's Iraq. You're being sold that that's what everything is about. But as you can see, there's actually really smart people debating this on our side with really smart reasons for why they're debating it. So let's now go and do likewise. Romans 8:28.